All right, I think we're live, John. I'm Gary Peter Carlson of iCheckYourSoul.com. I'm with John of the Light, and we're doing a video about who are these people these reptilians that have come here to take over. Take it away, John.
Thanks, Gary. I'm John of the Light. It's good to do another video with you, Gary. If you don't know Gary, or if you're not familiar with Gary, he is one of the world's experts on souls and spiritual research. So most of the videos that Gary and I are reporting are all about spirituality. It's all about the soul. And of course, one of the primary objectives is to try to expose these people who control us on planet Earth. We're trying to expose them as not being human. This video, I think Gary and I are going to try to better identify who these people are. Who are these people in disguise, the controllers of planet Earth who have enslaved humanity in a stealth way, secretly? People don't even quite understand that they're enslaved. They don't even know it. They don't see it. There's a lot of names for it. People have called it a matrix or whatever you want to call it. In this video, Gary and I will try to better identify who these people are, and we'll identify them as reptilians. So, Gary, let me start with a question. Do you want to start out and talk about quickly, what does it mean to be human? Is that a first question? Because the controllers of planet Earth may not be the same as us. What does it mean to be human?
What it means to be human is to have a human soul. And you can also have a soul that's modified to be human and be incarnated here as a Starseeder wanderer, and you're considered human because your soul is modified to be human. So you not only, the main thing is to have a human soul, and almost always you would be in a human body, but you could have a human soul and be incarnated in some other body and still be human. But that isn't happening. But what is happening is there's other groups here that are in human bodies, and they put their soul in human bodies, reptilian souls in human bodies, and they're still reptilian, but they're in human bodies, and they're disguised as us, and they're controlling humanity, and that's what we're trying to expose. Okay, now there's 4 groups of reptilians that I have discovered that are all working together. And the 4 groups are draconians, lizards, snakes, and dragons. They're all 4 separate groups, and they all have their own soul. Now, the draconians have the highest technology, and they're the only one of the 4 groups that know how to make clones. They've been I get most of my research by dowsing. I'm very good at asking questions, dowsing. Obviously, I read a lot of stuff from other people, and then I dowse or ask the higher density people if what I'm reading is true or false, and then I try to expand on it by asking more questions about it. Now, what I get on the draconians is there a group that's 8 cycles old. On average, in our galaxy group, a cycle on average is 26,000 years. So eight times 26,000 is like over 200,000 years old. Okay, I get that they've been coming to Earth for about 125,000 years. Any comment to that, John?
Right. So you just said that the Draconians, which is one of 4 races on Earth today of reptilians, is over 200,000 years old, but they arrived on Earth about 125,000 years ago.
Yeah, and that's before humanity started.
Okay.
So they've been coming to this planet. They haven't like been on this planet continuously all that time. They came here and left off and on. But as you know, humanity is finishing the 3rd cycle, and that makes humanity about 77,000 years old.
Okay.
And we started, there was another, from what I gather with my research, is there was another group of mammal people here before that, and the Anunnaki and 22 other races tinkered with the DNA of this other group and created the humanity we have today. And they finished their tinkering and created what is humanity 77,000 years ago.
Okay.
That's when humanity starts 3 cycles ago. And now these Draconians, they partnered up with these other 3 reptilian groups, I'm told about 15,000 years ago. And they, what reptilians do to take over planets, instead of putting their people on the ground with weapons and controlling the people, where they and start a physical war and other groups from space would fight them and all that nonsense they want to avoid. So it's what they do to take over is they do it covertly, and they grab the DNA of the people that live on the planet, and they create clones of the people that live there. And I don't know if you know this or not, but a clone isn't alive until a soul's added to the clone. That makes it alive. And they add their soul to the clone. And it's somewhat easy for these reptilians. They lay eggs, and each egg contains a soul. That's going to be, when the egg hatches and the reptilian comes out, the soul's going to be with the new reptilian. But the soul's already in the egg, so they can just take the egg and smash it or whatever, and the soul leaves, and they can catch the soul with magnetic confinement, and then they have a way of releasing that soul into the clone, and then the clone becomes alive. And so in our case, the human body becomes alive with a reptilian soul in it. And then they gotta train that human body to read, write, and talk, and the basic stuff. And I'm told they can do that in like less than 3 weeks. Yes, less than 3 weeks. And then they can release, they can start the clone as a little kid or an adult, or various choices. But I think they try to make as high quality clone as they can. And I think they try to make just female clones to start with. And then they release the clone into the society, and it grows up, and they have the clone mate with men that have high quality DNA.
Human males, humans, yeah.
Human males. Then the clone will have children that have reptilian souls. Whatever, when a woman has children, the children always get a soul from the same group that the mother's soul is in.
Let me ask you a quick question. So do they much more value female children, female offspring from the mother who's reptilian, because the female children can then carry on the reptilian soul bloodline?
That's true, but also when they have male children, they can more likely put them into positions of power.
Ah, right.
So there's both are important.
Both are important. Okay, so
they want to put the males in charge, and they want to use the females to make more people with reptilian souls.
Wow.
So they use both.
But they use the men to take over Earth, essentially, in a weird way, right? They use their male offspring to put them into high leadership positions around the world, and then the women propagate, more, reptilian soul bloodline.
Right. If you're in a big, powerful country with a lot of resources, and you want to take over a small country by people with reptilian souls, you just send a couple women over, a couple beautiful women over there with reptilian souls, and you bribe the leadership of that country to marry these women. People that are in power, right, marry these women, and then they have children with reptilian souls, and they put the males in power in the government, and the females marry other men that are in power, and eventually you have a bunch of people with reptilian souls in that country, and you put you get the males to go into leadership, and you have the women marry males that are in power already, and eventually you have enough people with reptilian souls, and you take over the country.
Let me ask you a question. How long ago do you think these reptilians started making clones? When did it really start on Earth that they started making clones and interbreeding their female clones with male humanity?
I'm told through dowsing that it was 6,000 years ago, and it also makes sense. All the researchers on Earth can only find good written research, written stuff from 6,000 years ago. From before that, they can't seem to find much. So it looks like the reptilians put their clones in and started to take over about 6,000 years ago, and they went around and wiped out all the other written records as best as they could, and so all the main written records started with them when they took over, it looks like.
So are they still making clones today then?
Yes, I think I'm told they are, but they usually make lower quality fast clones and just have them be like illegal immigrants and criminals and take over groups like Black Lives Matter or Antifa, or fighting groups like ISIS and Al Qaeda and stuff like that. They put these low quality clones in those groups and use them as takeover and fighting, while they establish the bloodline families, they use them to take over the countries.
Right. So let me ask a question, right? We're trying to identify in this video for viewers, who are these people, these non-humans controlling us. They started with clones 6,000 years ago and were breeding into humanity to breed their souls into humanity. And they've been doing this for 6,000 years. And after 6,000 years, how many bloodline reptilians are there today with human bodies and reptilian souls? How many have they created now?
Okay, I'm told that there's about 4 million people with reptilian souls that are involved in running the world. Now they make other low-level ones that only live 5 to 8 years to do temporary things, but they got the four groups. You know, the Draconians have the high technology, and they're the only ones that can do cloning. So they did clones for the lizards, dragons, and snakes, and they look like they assigned different areas of the world. Like the dragons are in the Far East. They're doing the Far East countries like Japan, Korea, China, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, and all those countries have dragon souls. And then they put the snake reptilians among the Middle East people. And the lizards and the draconians kind of are in the same countries a lot. The draconians are in the high-powered Western countries, and the lizards are in the smaller countries around them. They run them, and they're in the countries with the draconians. Like United States is run by draconians, but there's a lot of lizards. And I think that's also true for Great Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. I think those.
Let me ask you a question. So you identified what it means to be human. So let's identify what it means to be reptilian. Do you see a difference between, say, an actual Draco, a draconian reptilian, or a human that has a human body with a draconian soul? How do you see the two? Are they basically kind of the same? They're working together?
What do you mean? You mean a reptilian and a reptilian body, or a reptilian and a human body? Compare them, you mean?
I mean, they're a reptilian in a reptilian body versus a human being with a reptilian soul. I mean, they're both not human, right?
Right, they're both reptilian.
So do you see a difference between them? I mean, they're both.
I mean, yes, they got different bodies and a different mindset and different people they hang around with. Now, I've never seen a reptilian in a reptilian body, so I don't have any experience there, so I can't say too much. But if I was a reptilian soul, I would think and act a lot differently if I was in a human body versus if I was in a reptilian body, obviously.
So let me ask a few more questions about this, because this is a tough question. These reptilians in human bodies. So we're talking about who's controlling, who are these people controlling us on Earth today? We're saying that they're not technically reptilian extraterrestrials flying around in ships. These are human beings in human bodies, but with reptilian souls. Can you identify them in any way? Do they shapeshift? Do they work with their actual reptilians underground or in ships?
Okay, I don't know the answers to those for sure, but what I get dowsing is some of the members are in contact with the reptilians and reptilian bodies, and the reptilians have bases, a few bases on Earth, basically underground. I think they have a big presence in Antarctica, and they got a few underground bases, you know, in one in each continent or so. I heard like in Syria, there's underground base of reptilians, and there's one in Africa, and there's maybe one in Australia or something, and there might be one somewhere in the United States. But they say as secret as possible. Hardly anybody has seen a real reptilian. I mean, they stay completely secret. Supposedly, they got a lot of ships in outer space, and their ships are cloaked as well as possible.
So let me ask another question. They're known to humanity in different ways. Nobody today knows them as reptilians, correct? Nobody.
Well, some people do, but they're
relatively speaking.
It's all hush hush secret, you know. People high up in the government, you know. I mean, there's a big group of people running the government that has reptilian souls, but there's probably a few humans that know exactly what's going on, and they're being highly paid, and they gotta not talk about it, obviously, and they work with them, but basically they're in the government, and they know who else has a reptilian soul, and they work together, and the people around them don't know what's going on, and they don't tell.
So what you're saying is they can recognize each other.
Well, they can't by looking at each other, but they already know who's on their team. They're told.
They know who's on their team.
Right. They know which guy has a reptilian soul and which doesn't, just from you know, they met him and were introduced to him or whatever.
Okay.
I mean, they know for years, you know.
So somewhere in their career, right, they were like, what do they call them? Like in the World Economic Forum, they have what do they call them? The young leaders or the global leaders of the World Economic Forum. Like these humans with reptilian souls probably worked together and studied together and went to the same organizations and worked together at these organizations, correct?
Yeah, I'm sure they have a certain way to ask a certain question or make a certain sign or something like that to tell the other person I'm a reptilian. I'm sure they got a way to identify each other.
They probably have like signs, right? They probably have their like hands gestures.
Certain question they ask, and the person has to know how to answer it or something.
They got their secret questions or their secret handshakes or their secret signs and symbols. Yeah, they were like pin. Yeah. Well, when on Earth, humanity doesn't really know them as reptilians. They don't think. I mean, we're completely brainwashed, and we're completely in this sort of mind control matrix. They're telling everybody to believe the science, and the science that they're teaching everyone is that we're alone in the universe. There are no ETs, there are no extraterrestrials. So they're brainwashing everyone into thinking we are alone, that we are humanity, and when you look around, all you do is you see human beings. So you know, you don't identify, you can't see a reptilian walking among us. They just happen to be in disguise. They're wearing like a human suit, so to speak.
Yeah, if you can check their aura, you can tell that way.
Well, so people know them as a lot of different names.
Yeah, they have a camera that takes aura pictures, and maybe you can make some kind of device where you can see auras and tell who's one, but they don't
But
have that going on too good yet. But they
the
could.
best the best we know of them today is that people call them different names, right? So do we identify them as what? You know, Benjamin Fulford, he calls them the Khazarian Mafia, right? Jeff Berwick, he calls them the Satanic Death Cult, right? So there's different names
Yeah,
that
all the deep state.
yeah, the new
Globalists. Yeah, there's a lot.
globalists, the deep state, the new world order, right?
Yeah.
That was you know, old school. People have called them the new world order forever.
What the average person don't realize is all those groups contain people with reptilian souls. That's what the normies don't know, and that's what we're trying to explain that to everybody, that that's what all these groups are. They're people that aren't human controlling us, that have reptilian souls. If you notice, these groups don't act human. They do all kinds of evil stuff and make all kinds of rules that favor themselves and go against humanity. They're the only ones that create money, and I think we got them outnumbered somewhere like 1,700 to 1 or 2,000 to 1, and they got 80% of the money, and they own about 25% of the hard assets. So I mean, the wealth is totally lopsided. I mean, if you take the, I think it's the 5 or 7 richest people in the world, they got half the money of the world in just 5 or 7 people. And those 5 or 7 people all have reptilian souls. And the statistics on those people are hidden and not accurate anyway.
Right. So they're who we refer to as the bloodline families, the owners of the central banks. You know, we're talking about the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Morgans and all of the families that are the bloodline families. People call them
just draconian. All
they're
those
draconians. They call them the globalists.
They include the other 3 groups.
We
all
refer
these bloodline families and all these hard controllers of Earth with the central banks and all that. It's just the draconians. And the draconians are the only ones that can shapeshift. The only ones that are pedophiles are the draconians. I mean, they're the main ones that you visibly see and hear about. The other groups that run in the other countries are more secretive and seem more human and less reptilian than the draconians. Draconians are by far the most evil.
When you hear of the New World Order or the deep state or the globalists or the Khazarian Mafia, the Ashkenazi Jews, the Babylonian Jews, the Zionist banking cabal, when you hear of all of the different names, the shadow government, people call them the Satanists or the Satanic Death Cult or the pedophiles who want a one world government, the international Jewish bankers, the communists, the Marxists, the Nazis or the Ashkenazis, right? When you hear all these names, pretty much are they usually referring to this same group?
Yeah, they're usually the draconian controllers. The top people on Earth that have the most control are draconians, and all these names and everything are referring to the top draconians controlling everything. They have a lot of low-level people, and they got all the people in other countries that are controlling the other countries' governments that are these other groups like snakes, dragons, and lizards.
So they've taken over governments, they've taken over the agencies like the United Nations and NATO and the World Economic Forum. They probably created it, the World Health Organization, right? The CDC, all of the big central banks, right? The BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, all the political organizations and the think tanks and the secret societies. They probably are the Bilderberg Group, right? The Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, APAC. I mean, they own all the international corporations.
Yeah, all that's 100% people with reptilian souls. And mostly of all the things you mentioned there, it's almost all draconians and some lizards in there.
All right, so let me ask you an ending question so we can end the video. There's so many questions I'm sure people are trying to ask as they're watching this video, assuming anyone's watching this video. Right, a lot of big questions. What do you think they're going to do next, Gary? They've already taken over the world. They've already taken over all the government agencies, the institutions, banking, finance, all the UN, NATO, the World Economic Forum. They've already taken over everything. What are they going to do next?
They're trying to lower the human population as much as possible. They claim there's 8 billion of us, and I think they inflated the number on purpose to make it way higher than it really is. So to strengthen their statement of there's too many people, we got to lessen the number of people. I think there's really only 3 billion and some. But they want to
reduce the population.
They want to cut it down to 500 million people, so they can easier control everything, and we can't rise up and take them out of power.
Well,
and also the white people are by far the strongest group on Earth, and they're the ones that have a chance to get these reptilians out of power. So they're going against white people as much as possible. They're immigrating brown people in every white country to try to get the whites to have interracial marriages to end the white race.
So let me ask a few more questions. There's not much left for them to steal or control. They kind of have taken everything over. So, like we're seeing in the West, are they going to continue to try to implement their communist and Marxist, laws and reduce the freedoms and liberties in the Western nations? Are they going to keep doing that?
Yeah, they're trying to make us all live in cramped cities with small apartments. And have all the rural land be off limits to humans.
Start World War III, everyone's wondering?
Yeah, World War III would eliminate a lot of people, and by who won the war and how it came out would increase their control. But they want to stop us from traveling, stop us from living rurally, stop us from producing our own food. They want to control all the food and where we live, where we can go, and where we can travel to. They want to and surveil us and everything we do.
Right.
Everything we write, they want to record every phone call, copy every text.
All right. So
They
their
cut down as
ultimate.
much as possible on everything. They're really the draconians are brutal control addicts.
All right. So their ultimate goal is to reduce the population, try to get it down to something that they can control better, implement their communist and Marxist ways so that they can reduce our freedoms and liberties and control us better, take away our guns and our rights. And then of course they want to they want to reduce the middle class. They want to kill the middle class. They want to have super elites at the top and workers at the bottom. So they want to eliminate everyone in the middle. They want to reduce the population. So they're going to go about it many different ways. What about like the jabs and the 5G? They're probably going to keep going with that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're controlling the medical as much as possible. They want to have everybody be sick all the time and pay to get medical treatments all your life. And they want to have everybody taking several drugs that you got to keep buying and keep taking that makes you more sick.
All right, last question.
Control your health. They want to control your health and your wealth as much as they can.
All right, last question. Benjamin Fulford, he came out this past Friday, and he said that the next thing is that he's anticipating is some big event. Do you see that? Do you see some like huge event just about to happen, like he says? Like he actually thinks it's going to be like the end of the United States government. Now, some people think it's going to be a financial crisis, like a financial collapse, or the death of the U.S. government. Do you see a big event coming on the horizon in the next few weeks or months?
I don't. I get from my dowsing, no, I don't think so. But they want you to believe there is. And if something big happens, it'll be the humans or the white hats fighting back. And the white hats are a mixture of lizards and humans fighting the draconians, basically.
I think that was a good video. I think we covered most of what we wanted to talk about. Why don't we move on to another video and sign off?
All right. Thanks for watching. And we're on YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble.
If you want to,
all three.
If you want to comment on the video, feel free to do it in the comment section below. If you want to ask us a question, you could do that in the comment section, or you can contact Gary through his website, icheckyoursoul.com.
Yeah, there's a email and phone number on the website. That's easy to find. All right, thanks for watching.